Welcome back to War Seats in the House. Mike Russo, Anthony LaPanta. Anthony coming from Minnesota. I'm coming from Denver, where we're getting a winter storm tonight, Anthony, on May 4th. Wow. And the Wild faced that yesterday at Ball Arena. Man, oh man, talk about two different styles of hockey, the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars. And we saw, obviously, the Wild win game one of the Dallas series 6-1, and it turned out to be a one-off. But Dallas coming off that game in Buffalo, final regular season game, and the Wild will be hoping that this is a similar thing. Wild, the good news is that they fought back from a 3-0 deficit, actually took a 5-4 lead for about a minute, and then Colorado just turned up the notches and won 9-6. I just think, I think it was a culture shock, just different styles, Anthony. You don't quick turnaround and two very different teams against Colorado. They're coming straight up the middle of the gut. Dallas didn't have that type of speed, no rush chances really, and I just think that they're going to have to make some serious adjustments today, and we'll see if they can do it.
Well, there's no doubt it's a different style of hockey. Dallas is a lot more of a tip and screen type get inside team, where Colorado is a little faster, higher skilled attack. And I think it's the guys Minnesota was missing certainly affected the lineup last night. Jonas Brodin is probably as valuable a defender as you have in a style of game like this, where it's more of a skating game. And of course, Joel Eriksson Ek is one of the great shutdown centermen in all of the NHL. I think that certainly played a factor, but I thought Minnesota's game just looked a little loose in their own zone. And maybe it's just because, and I heard John Hines' post-game comments, and he really quickly dismissed the need to have had a reset or a practice or a couple of days to get ready for this. And while I understand what he's saying and I agree with him, I think it might just be you just played 6 games in a row against the same team, and your mindset is just different. And now all of a sudden you have to adjust to a totally different style of game. And I think Minnesota, there's very little doubt in my mind that they'll be better in game 2. Whether or not it's good enough to beat this Avalanche team, I don't know, but it sure, they weren't sharp in their own zone. And that's, I don't want to overstate the obvious and probably an understatement, but they looked like they were out of sync really from the start of the game.
Well, I thought it really started in the neutral zone. I mean, they just were getting. I mean, they made no adjustments. They did a little bit in the second period, but that's where it all started for Colorado. They were flying through there, and I think when you say playing the same team 6 times in a row and then all of a sudden adjusting, I think that goes for Wallstedt too. I think he hadn't seen rushes in weeks, and now all of a sudden you have this team just flying at you, on essentially 2-on-1s that they turned into 2-on-0s. It was really, alarming how it wasn't just Nathan MacKinnon, how many Avalanche players just skated right through their D in the offensive zone and would create unbelievable chances. And, we'll talk about the Wild offensively in a little bit, but they've got to make some serious adjustments. And that was my rationale with my questioning to John Hines last night. I wasn't trying to accuse them that they should have practiced when they just came off the 6-game series, but I don't think that the league did them any favors, Anthony. I mean, it is absurd. It is absolutely absurd that at 12:05 a.m. Saturday is when they find out that they are getting on a plane that day. And if the Wild had known that, they might have done things differently in terms of their planning. And I just think they did look utterly unprepared yesterday for this type of style.
Yeah, well, a couple things there. One, I agree with you. I think it was silly to rush to start this series, and it doesn't make any sense. The Eastern side
all because
is
of television,
right? But the Eastern side actually makes less sense. You start the Philadelphia-Carolina series on Saturday with Montreal and Tampa having to play Game 7 the next day, which tells you that that they're not going to start at least until before they ever said anything. They can't start before Tuesday, and it's likely going to be Tuesday or Wednesday. Now you're putting yourself in a spot where, imagine that series. Look ahead. Let's say Carolina makes fast work of Philadelphia. Buffalo's likely to go deep into a series against either one of Tampa or Montreal, and you're looking at maybe a week of an advantage for Carolina coming out of that series.
Yeah, Anthony, to your point, game 4 of the Carolina series, which could, if you're what you're alluding to
Right.
is potential sweep, is game 2 of the Buffalo Montreal
Right. I
series.
know. And this
Crazy.
and it so now even think about, let's even say Carolina Philly goes 5. Well, if Buffalo, and now we know it's Montreal, but before they said it all, I was like, this series could go 7 either way. And you're talking about now going into the conference finals and giving one team a week's advantage of rest, where it just didn't make any sense to be in such a rush to get that series started. I know they wanted a game on the Saturday for the TV window. They knew they were going to get a Sunday game as soon as the Tampa Montreal series was going to go 7. You could have just waited with Minnesota and Colorado to start a day later. Now, the only thing I will say is the Wild were aware, as you well know, they were well aware that this was a possibility,
Yeah.
and they knew all the contingencies. So their players were told earlier in the day on Friday, be prepared for a Saturday practice and a flight on Saturday. So it isn't like they were all waiting to go to bed Friday night wondering, hey, am I leaving for Denver tomorrow? But I just think there was no reason to rush the start of this series when you knew that the other series wasn't going to start for another day anyway.
Yeah.
You've got the Vegas Anaheim series. It isn't like that series was starting on the Sunday, so you wanted to get these things lined up. It was a strange way to rush into it, and I'm not. This isn't to say that this made it impossible for the Wild to win in Game 1. I just think their team. You've got a mentality of, and you know what it's like as a media guy. You're thinking about nothing but Dallas for 6 days, 6 games, 2 weeks in a row, where it's the matchups, the what's working, what's not working, the adjustments, and now all of a sudden you flip a switch like you have to do during the regular season so often to face a different team 2 nights later. It's just not necessarily as easy to all of a sudden, hey, wait. Now our neutral zone's got to be different. Now our their defensive zone coverage is different. Their power play is different. All those little things that the Wild have been thinking about Dallas, whether they admitted it or not, since about February. And now all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye, in 48 hours, you have to shift your attention to Colorado.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is what we saw there. Now the question is, can they adjust? They're not getting on the ice today. So everything that they're going to be doing is going to be video work. They have an earlier than normal game, tomorrow. So I guarantee they'll have an optional skate. So it's all going to have to be video adjustment. And as John Hines said, mindset adjustment, wrapping your head around playing a totally different team, a different, as you said, D-zone coverage as well, man-to-man and things like that. But let's get into that. I mean, that's one area where once the Wild got in on their forecheck, they actually looked really good yesterday, got themselves back into the game. Marcus Johansson, a great first goal, picking off a pass by Ross Colton in the slot. Then Quinn Hughes made just an unbelievable play to Ryan Hartman. The Wild wound up falling down 4-2, but then roared back with 3 straight goals. Tarasenko, Quinn Hughes, and Marcus Foligno on the Marcus Foligno-like shorthanded goal. Talk about bowling your way up the ice and skating yourself right into the crossbar. But that was a cool moment too in the game, Anthony, where Nick Foligno is literally telling him to go. Don't wait for me to turn it into a 2-on-0. Just go. And he turned into a breakaway and scored. The unfortunate part is their PK, even though it was an even strength goal, failed them again because a minute later, Colorado tied the score up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to say the PK failed them when you do score shorthanded, and you break it even on any power play. But I do think there was great resiliency shown by the Wild in this game, and we haven't talked about Jesper Wallstedt, but I thought he bounced back as well, having giving up 3 early. Then he made a couple big saves late in the first period that made it even possible for the Wild to get out of that period within a goal. Offensively, they did show that they could exploit where we both thought the Avalanche might be susceptible on their lower defensive pairs, and Minnesota was able to take advantage of that. They're not going to score 6 every night in this series, because I'm sure Colorado's looking at this game saying, whoa, what in the world just happened to us too?
Yep.
I would bet both teams come out with a different effort. But it's the Wild. If you would have said coming into this game, you're going to find a way to score 6 in Denver, the Wild would have taken it in a heartbeat. I don't think they ever would have imagined they were going to give up, even if you eliminate the empty netter, give up 8 goals in the flow of the game. And so, yeah, there were some good things for Minnesota, and but just the areas where the Wild have to be good to win this series, they weren't good last night.
You've heard me talk about the Onyx Hunt app on here for years. Well, make sure you download the Onyx Fish app as well, because before you even pull the boat out of the garage, you can sort lakes by species, trophy potential, and keeper potential, so you're not just guessing and you're going out with a plan. You could also use the Onyx Fish app to filter walleye, bass, panfish, whatever you're chasing, and see species abundance and size data so you actually know what's in the lake before you launch. Everything you need to get there and get on fish is all in one app. Boat ramps, lake access points, public versus private land, points of interest like bait shops and camping. It's all built into the app. No more scrambling around 3 different apps or outdated reports. Onyx Fish gives you the proven fishing area data and local insights that used to take years to learn. So you could do a decade of knowledge all in about 10 minutes. So download Onyx Fish on the App Store or visit onyxmaps.com/fish. Spring fishing is here. Go find a lake you've been driving past for years and finally find out if it's worth the launch. You've heard me for years talk about my Connecticut water treatment system in my house. Well, many homeowners don't realize how much hard or poor quality water affects your daily life. Issues include cloudy water, bad taste, buildup on fixtures, dry skin, appliance wear, everything. Well, I have your solution, and it's Aquarius Home Services. They are your authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Connecticut systems provide worry-free water throughout your entire home. Systems right now start at $9.95 per month for the first 3 months. It's $9.95 per month for the first 3 months. Their technicians will come to your home and provide a free in-home water quality testing analysis. Aquarius handles everything from your testing to your installation. One call and your problem is solved. You can enjoy spotless dishes, softer clothes, smoother, softer skin and hair, worry-free drinking water right from your faucet. That means no more plastic water bottles, no more water cans, everything. You'll be surprised also how little salt it uses. Visit right now or book your services at AquariusHomeservices.com. That's AquariusHomeservices.com, earning the right to be recommended. That's Aquarius Home Services. And don't forget to tell them that Russo sent you. Yeah, and as I mentioned at the start, Dallas felt the same way after losing 6-1 in Game 1, and they definitely recovered in Game 2. So we'll see if the Wild can force a split here. Just for Wallstedt, getting those bouquets obviously in the first round, unbelievable performance against the Dallas Stars. And then last night, we learned, that this is a fickle league and things can change rather quickly, especially when you're playing a high potent offense like the Colorado Avalanche. I don't blame him for everything last night, but man, Anthony, back-breaking goals. You pull, so you can't stop the 5-5 goal. And then Devon Taves makes it. Devon Taves made it 5-5. The Cale Makar goal to start the third period, so be it. Great shot by a great player. The Kadri goal needs to be stopped. And then when Matt Zuccarello turns it into 7-6, and now you can't stop Makar again from the same spot a minute later when you just get back in the game. Those, to me, were the two egregious goals last night, and he has got to rebound. I assume that he's going to get the net again, but man, that was not a good showing last night.
No, it wasn't, and I don't know which way John will go. I kind of think the same way. He built up some equity for sure during that first round series. On the other hand, if you're not going to replace a guy after he gave up 8, I don't know when you would replace a guy. I mean, it isn't like he gave up 5. He gave up 8. Right. And yes, some weren't his fault, and he did make a couple big saves in the first period. But there's a part of me that would say this would be the logical time to go to your other goaltender. You did ride him quite a bit during the regular season, and then hope if it doesn't work out, you always have time in the series to go back to Wally, and especially maybe you change the momentum of the series coming home, hopefully get a couple injured guys back, you make a goaltender change, you're in front of your home fans. If you throw Wally back in there for Game 2 and it's anything like what it was in Game 1, have you waited too long to try to play that card, so to speak? I don't know. I'll be curious to see which way they go, and you'll probably find out a little bit more about what they're thinking when they talk today. But there is a part of me that thinks if you're not going to switch after a guy gives up 8, think about what that does even mentality-wise for Philip Gustafsson. If he's sitting there thinking, well, geez, they've been saying they trust both goalies, both of us be ready, both of us. I get it. Wally played great in the first round series, but he just gave up 8. If I don't get a shot when that happens, when am I ever going to get a shot?
No, it's a good point. I still have this sense that they'll probably come back with Wallstedt and then but maybe with a short leash. Like now, if you give up 2 or 3 early, you probably have to make the
Yeah,
pull.
they may. I'm not saying
Yeah,
that I'm just saying if it was me, I think this might be the time I do that. I don't
yeah,
know which way they're going to go. Wouldn't shock me if they went
yeah,
to Wally and said, "Hey, look, he was great in round 1. We owe it to him to play better in
yeah.
front of him."
So a couple guys on the Avalanche last night kind of let it slip that they have a book on Wallstedt, and 5 of the goals all from the same spot. Even Nazem Kadri on that breakaway skates himself to the right and stops and shoots from there. And they all, I mean, 5 goals from the same spot. Against Dallas, we started to hear that the Wild felt like shoot blocker side on Jake Ottinger. All goalies have deficiencies. Do you think this is one that they have uncovered with Wallstedt, or was it just something that was happening last night that they realized?
Well, I don't know. We've watched Wallstedt enough I don't know that there's an area where he's susceptible, and he's played great against Colorado during the regular season when he saw them. So I don't know if I'd say they have him solved, but I mean, I agree with your assessment. There were just a couple pucks that needed to be stopped, and part of it was because of where they were coming from on the ice, but part of it was where they were in the game. They just needed a save at that point. And, I don't know what the official numbers. I think he ended up being about 3.5 goals under expected in terms of saves in that game. I think the Kadri goal and the second Makar goal were each under 5% in terms of expected goals from that spot. They have to be stopped. I don't know that I'd say there's a book. I mean, with how much we've watched Wallstedt over the year, it isn't like there's been wow, he continues to give up goals in that spot.
Yeah. You mentioned Brodin and Eriksson Ek. This is obviously a major, major problem. Imagine coming into the series against an attack like this with an offense like this, and then you learn that you're without your 2 best defensive players, one on the blue line, one on the up front. I get the impression that the Wild are really hoping these 3 days will do wonders for them. But the one thing I will say, it's a pipe dream for Brodin. I hear that Brodin's going to be out for a bit. Eriksson Ek, we all know Eriksson Ek. Maybe that will do him justice, and he can somehow figure out a way to play in games 3 or 4. Anthony, but just huge losses, and the Brodin one was big last night. I mean, we talked about the chemistry that Brodin and Spurgeon have, the fact that they were only on the ice for 2 even strength goals against in the Dallas series, and last night Jared Spurgeon and Jake Middleton outscored 4-0, 3-0 at even strength, 4-0. Probably not a coincidence.
No, I don't think it's a coincidence. Did we talk about this on the last show? I think I shared the Ryan Carter's assessment of RD, or actually, I don't think it was on our show, but we were talking before Game 6 of the Dallas series, and he made kind of an interesting point. We were talking with Jody Shelley, actually, who was doing the national color on that game and on last night's game. And we were talking about Brodin's injury, and he said, if you look at the Wild's top 4, this was going into Game 6 against Dallas.
Oh yeah,
And I
you
hadn't
did
thought
talk
about it this way. Yeah,
yeah.
where he said that Brodin was maybe the most replaceable. As I thought about it, I said that might be right tonight, but it isn't going to be right against Colorado. He might be the most irreplaceable because of the guys you're trying to match up against. I think that's a big factor. There's no question about it. The Wild defense just has to be better. I thought as good as Hughes was offensively last night, I didn't think those guys, at least the eye test, it didn't look like those guys were razor sharp in their own zone either. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think, I don't know that Hines has an adjustment to make there in terms of personnel or deep pairings or anything. I think they just have to be better. It's
Yeah. The
Middleton
only
and
thing I was
Spurgeon.
wondering, Anthony, is like Damon Hunt was good yesterday in limited sheltered minutes, 14 minutes. So was actually not on the ice for a goal against, was +1. Do you maybe play him with Spurgeon and put Middleton back with Bogosian, who we know that they've played together before, and now maybe you're limiting, Jake's minutes a bit.
Well, they were really good against Dallas, Middleton and Bogosian. They were really good when they were together. And it's a different style of game, though. It was much more of a protect the net front, heavier style of game. And it's something I would consider for sure, just to put a guy whose strength is his skating with Spurgeon. Maybe that helps you a little bit. In the past, Jake Middleton's game has been better when he's played more minutes.
Mhm.
He hasn't necessarily been at his best, I would say, during the course of the season, but I might try it. I mean, I think at this point, and maybe it isn't even how you start the game, but it's a quick adjustment that you go to, because they just, none of their, or neither of their top two defensive pairs looked airtight last night. And what's interesting is that it wasn't Colorado's big guns other than Makar late that were doing the damage. It was, I think at one point I looked, I think after the second period, it was 10 goals on the board, and the five guys who came into this series with 30 goals or more hadn't had any of them.
Yeah. And we know that two of them were on Minnesota, Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy. Also didn't have any. Quiet nights for both of them, Anthony. I thought the Urov line was good. I thought Urov played pretty well yesterday, on that line with Johansson and Boldy. But Boldy, he was suppressed from at least getting shots and things like that. And same thing with Kirill. I mean, we just see it too often, Anthony, where the stars and the other team outshine Kirill, and he was kind of MIA last night.
Well, yeah, he was, although there were a few moments where he just does what Kirill does and makes plays. And I know we've talked about this before. We don't need to go back down the road again, but it's, for whatever reason, he's a lightning rod where it's why hasn't Kirill done more? What is Kirill not doing? And then you look and he's leading the NHL in points for the playoffs late in that Dallas series. It's just, and with almost nothing on the power play, I might add. So, I mean, he's a guy that's going to find his way. He's going to find a way to score. He's going to find a way onto the score sheet. I think, the way that Colorado is able to check that line without Eriksson Ek playing between Boldy and Johansson is going to make it difficult for him. That there's a reason why when you have balance and you're scoring, it makes it harder to defend. I think the one thing that, if you're Hines, you look at it, you scored 6. So do you really want to start to tinker and adjust with your lines?
Yeah,
I don't think so. I think you've got to go run those guys back and see now if it's more about defending than it is about creating when it comes to Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you. I mean, and that, to me, the only maybe tweak would be changing the bottom two defense pairs and maybe moving Hunt up.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I was just talking about forward groups.
Yeah.
And there, because, remember that, well, Kirill wasn't a part of the scoring. I mean, Hartman does get a goal in that game. Zuccarello gets a goal in the game. They did have some chances with those guys on the ice. And, if you get two goals from that line every night, I think you're going to win this series.
Yeah. But we haven't seen very often what we have Matt Boldy with 3 shots and Kirill with 1. Don't see that very often. You mentioned the depth scoring essentially of Colorado when you talked about the fact that guys like McKinnon and, they didn't score until late in the game. Obviously, McKinnon gets the I think it was the empty netter. That's one area where we knew coming into the series that Colorado was just really good. Even though the Nazem Kadri line up until his goal was -3, that their third line and fourth line have the ability to score. We've seen that last night. Very different makeup than the Wild's third and fourth lines, but Colorado, let's put it this way: Dallas had to go the entire series before Maverick Bourque scored, was the first guy scoring that wasn't in your top 6 for the majority of the round. And last night we saw that Colorado, they could score from anywhere.
Minnesota had a big edge in depth scoring in the Dallas series, and I agree. That's where I thought Colorado had an edge in this series. I thought maybe Minnesota could exploit their third D pair, but I thought their third and fourth lines they've got, they went out and got Kadri and Waugh at the deadline. I mean, that's 2 pretty significant players to throw into for large parts of the game into your bottom 6. Minnesota, I think, has to be able to change the way the game is played and turn it more into a heavier game when those guys are on the ice. And I know Marcus Foligno was a physical presence in the game last night, but there weren't a lot of shifts that had the feel that so many of those shifts had in the Dallas series, where it became just a heavy forecheck, pound their defenseman kind of shift. Maybe they have to get more of that to make it more of a heavy game when those lines are on the ice, rather than the trading chances, fast-paced, wide-open style that we saw too often last night. Are you looking to move a little easier and feel better day to day? StretchLab can help. StretchLab is the leader in one-on-one assisted stretching with locations across the Twin Cities. Every session is customized, whether you're chasing a loose puck, grinding through men's league, or just trying to keep up with a game. It's not just recovery, it's mobility, prevention, and performance. Tight hips, sore back, it's all about staying in the game, whatever your game looks like. Don't sit this shift out. Book your first stretch today and feel the difference. Life comes with a lot of things to remember, and Great Clips doesn't think your haircut should be one of them. That's why they use Clip Notes to save your haircut details, so no matter which stylist you see or Great Clips salon you visit, it's easy to feel like the best version of you. So do yourself a favor. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to a great haircut every time. Download the app today. Great Clips. It's going to be great. Hi, this is Anthony LaPanta. I wanted to introduce you to a product a lot of my friends have been using lately called Lucy. Lucy is a premium tobacco-free nicotine pouch that comes in a variety of strengths and flavors, so there's an option for just about everyone. What makes it stand out is the flavor experience, especially with Lucy Breakers, which have a built-in flavor capsule you crack for an instant extra burst. That's what makes Lucy different. It's the only pouch delivering long-lasting, on-demand flavor, giving you a unique experience every time. Get 20% off your first order at lucy.com/worstseats with a promo code. And if you don't want to wait, check out the store locator to find a Lucy near you and grab it today. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every customer is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
How about the Wild yesterday? Anthony won 41 of 65 faceoffs. Obviously, McCarron was excellent in the circle. Hartman was excellent in the circle until he wasn't on the one goal against, and they lost. That
and that's without Eriksson Ek.
Yeah. So pretty impressive. So Michael McCarron gets an elevated role, takes 22 draws, which was his season high with Minnesota. Might even been probably a career high. I can't imagine he was taking 22 draws a night in Nashville. Hartman, he must have lost a couple shots because at one point he was up to 9. He went down to 7 at the end of the game. But an exciting game, that's for sure, Anthony. I don't think that either coach, to your point before, wants to see that again. I mean, even Jared Bednar last night couldn't explain how that happened. A lot of those guys in the Colorado locker room thought this was a one-off, Anthony, and we'll see. I mean, I think you said it succinctly and accurately at the very beginning. When you play the same team 6 times, that's such a different style than Colorado, and then you just come into this series right away. I just think it's a culture shock. You're also playing a fresh team, one that had almost a week off. So, we'll see. I think the Wild are going to make some adjustments today, and we'll see if they can slow this attack down. Yeah,
it was an interesting similarity to what Game 1 looked like in the Dallas series, where it was Minnesota that's, at least their stars, had a full week off. Most of their team had 3 or 4 days off, where Dallas had played a night later with some travel and had opted not to rest their guys. So yeah, there were some similarities there, but I think this is totally different than what we're going to see the rest of this series. When you think about the way these teams matched up during the regular year, and we saw some offense, but we also saw games where it was, while fast, still responsible checking style. You think about the game that Wallstedt beat Colorado back in St. Paul in December. You think about the game they played, the 2 that they played in Denver just out of the Olympic break, totally different feel to what we saw last night. I think that's more what we'll see the rest of this series.
Well, they better, or this is going to be a long but short series, so to speak. Anthony, just real quick, Game 7, Tampa Bay and Montreal. What a crazy, crazy game. Yeah. 9 shots on goal by the Canadians, and you just sensed in the third period, when that game was still deadlocked, that Tampa was going to be in trouble. And man, what a goal by Alex Newhook. I mean, off the back,
Yeah. I mean, what a goal is one way to look at it. The other is they had 9 shots. The two that went in, Newhook's comes from basically behind the net off the back of the goalie, and the other one is headed 10 feet wide and hits Moser in the shin pad and deflects in. So you could argue that of their 9 shots, only 7 of them were really destined to hit the net on their own.
Yeah.
And I thought John Cooper's comments after the game were great because he just said, look, the hockey gods have been in my corner a lot of times in my career. Tonight, they were in the other guy's corner. And if you had said coming into the game, what do we have to do in game 7 to beat this really explosive offensive Montreal team, you couldn't have scripted to play much better than they played, and yet they lost the game. And that is hockey, and that's why so many times when we've talked about getting a team and building a roster, it's so unpredictable. You build your roster to be one of the legit contenders going in, and then you have to get goaltending, you have to stay healthy, and you have to get some bounces. And Montreal got a couple really good bounces last night. Now, they had put themselves into a game 7 by being just as good as Tampa throughout the first 6. So this isn't like it was just one game out of nowhere. But Tampa was the better club in game 7 and just lost the game. And if you had said you're only going to give up 9 and you happen to have Andrei Vasilevsky in your net, one of the best goalies in the world, everybody takes that. And yet their season is over and they're heading home. And Cooper was asked a few times of the similarities between that game and the game in Milan, where you feel like as a coach, you had your team ready, you played the game the way you had to play it, and yet you just got beat. And that's hockey. And that's why they play a best of 7 instead of a 1-game situation. But if you would have said going into last night, Minnesota's going to score 6 in Denver, Tampa's going to give up 9 shots at home against Montreal, you'd have probably said the results of both games were going to go the other way.
Yeah, good. Well said. That is hockey. And lastly, first game of the Carolina-Philadelphia series, Carolina shutout. Philadelphia. This looks like it's going to be a tough series for the Flyers. I mean, Carolina's, when Tampa's now out, Florida's now out. Look, there's other really good teams in the East, obviously, in the other bracket now with Buffalo and Montreal. But Carolina's got to be feeling like this might finally be their time to get to the Stanley Cup final again.
Yeah, and the fact that they were able to take care of Ottawa quickly in the first round and get a little rest. Now maybe you can do the same with Philadelphia. It all seems to be playing the way they'd want it to play, to finally be their year to make that last step. And when you think about some of the teams that have been the big dogs in the East over the last few years, you mentioned Florida and Tampa certainly near the top of that list, but there isn't a great Boston team on the horizon. When you think about how good some of those really good Eastern teams have been in the last, say, 6 years, there isn't one of those teams. As good a story as Buffalo has been, this is not a team that's been knocking on the door for 5 years either. Same with Montreal. Carolina's got a huge edge in playoff experience over the other 3 remaining teams, and we got to see now if they can take advantage of that. It does look like it's going to take something special for Philadelphia to even extend this series, I think. This has a feel of a 4 or 5 game Carolina win to me.
Yeah. What's your sense of Anaheim Vegas? I mean, you and I didn't give Anaheim a lot of love going into the first round series, yet they beat the Oilers. And the one edge that I give Anaheim is goaltending. Vegas, if you look at all their metrics during the regular season, in the first round as well, goaltending has been their biggest issue. Carter Hart was not very good in the first round, but Vejmelka might have been worse. And so,
yeah, which was surprising because Vejmelka had been really good for Utah throughout the season. I think Vegas wins this series, and I think it's a short series. I think Anaheim took advantage of an Edmonton club that, to me, has looked like a mess defensively all year long. Not just goaltending in their own zone. This was the first time in 4 years that Edmonton star players weren't able to just ramp it up at the playoff time, and I mean that. Anaheim's not going to go into this Vegas series and win games by scoring 6. I just don't see it happening. I thought Vegas looked really good for most of that series against Utah. And if they get a couple saves, they win that series in 5 games. I thought Hart got better as the series went on, at least got to the point where he wasn't stealing games for him, but he wasn't giving games away either. And I just think I like the way Vegas is playing right now. I think this is a short series for the Golden Knights.
Yeah. I will say, I was saying to somebody with the Wild yesterday, it's just unbelievable that you come into this series without Eriksson Ek and Brodin. And there is a way that Anaheim could get to the conference final. And then you have Anaheim sitting there, a Wild team that's beaten them, 21 or 22 out of 22 or 23. And then the Wild go into this series without two of their key cogs. It really is a shame. We'll talk more about Eriksson Ek and Brodin's injuries, on the next show as well. And we'll be coming to you after game 2 at some point the next day. I have an early morning flight the next day back to the Twin Cities, so we'll figure out a time on Wednesday. But Anthony, enjoy your day off. Pray for me. Storm of the century coming to Denver.
Yeah, make sure you don't park your car next to a tree.
Thanks to our incredible sponsors, Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems. Our newest sponsor, Lucy Pouches, Stretch Lab, Great Clips, and Onyx Hunt. Thanks, everybody.
So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world